Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prashant. So I was talking to you about the people like Jericho, actually. He represents, we can talk of many people, but I don't want to go on about these. Um, the thing that you have to understand with Jericho is that he wanted to redefine the whole idea of aesthetic. Till then, aesthetic was considered to be everything that is beautiful and what constitutes beauty. So, this he wanted to redefine. And his most famous painting is the raft of the Medusa. Uh, in the name of the ship was in French Medusa, but it was named after that mythical Greek figure Medusa, who had snakes for hair. She was a very ugly looking person. And what Jericho was trying to prove with this particular painting is that the Enlightenment belief that a human being can conquer nature, manipulate nature for his or her own desires is something that is misplaced. He said, as long as nature is benevolent, then we think we can do whatever we want. But if nature shows its anger, then there is absolutely no way in which we can do whatever we want. And one particular way of depicting this was through a shipwreck. Okay, so the Medusa is the ship. It's a wooden ship. It's broken to pieces. The captain leaves it, leaves the passengers, and goes away. And what happens is that the passengers are clinging desperately to wooden pieces or rafts, as they are called. And he also painted several other shipwrecks, but nothing was as influential as this particular painting of his, which is the raft of the Medusa. Then his other very well-known painting is actually the one that is called The Study of the Head of a Youth, in which you have the side profile of a youth. And uh, why would anyone want to paint just from here to here and in profile? Why would anyone want to do that? Nobody did that before him, but he did it. His idea was, this is one way of painting. This is one way of examining beauty. And then he also painted dead bodies. He sat in mortuaries or morgues, as they are called, and he put lights, which were, candle lights at certain angles so that they throw the light on the dead bodies in a particular manner. And he painted these. And these paintings were where he was trying to say, this is the body you celebrated. Look at it now. What is it? Okay, so that is one. Another instance of Jericho is that of a painting which is called the Le Mano Mane, Manes, pronounced Mano Mane, Le Elias. If it is written le, then it is pronounced l, that is in singular. If it is in plural, it is written les and then pronounced le. Okay, so le mano mane was the insane. So he painted a portrait of insane people in an asylum. He was portrayed in an asylum. Okay, so mental people, as they were called, or mad people, as they were called. He painted these kind of themes, extreme themes, which wanted to show that the whole idea that you have of, what should I say? The whole idea that you have of this thing that the human body is beautiful, and the human rationality is wonderful. We can manipulate nature, we can do whatever we want with nature. So this is something that was actually being disproved, so to speak, by Jericho. And among all the romanticist artists, or he is the one who deserves a pride of position because of his extreme depiction of things. It is exactly the same strategy used by Rousseau in the Confession, which is to shock people. If you tell them softly, they won't understand. So the idea is shock people. That is what Rousseau also did in the Confessions. Now, for some time, Jericho went to Rome, and what he was uh, trying to prove, if you remember what I told you about Alberti, okay, Alberti basically tried to say that a human being can tame 1,000 wild horses. And in response to that, Jericho basically he began a painting which he called the race of the barbaric horses. He called them barbaric because uh, they were not, I'm sorry, please give me a second. My apologies. Yeah. So um, he wanted to show that horses, how will they be if you're not able to control them? So that's why he called it the race of the barbaric horses. But unfortunately, he couldn't finish that particular painting. Only a part of it is there. It is there in a museum in Paris, but that is little bit that is there, or quite a bit actually, that is there, is a good enough indication of what it is that Jericho was trying to tell the people. And this is just an aside. There is a German filmmaker who goes by the name of Werner Herzog, Werner, Werner Herzog, Herzog. He was very inspired by Jericho, and he made movies in the 1970s and 80s, and he picked up unusual themes. One of his favorite themes was picking up little people. That is the politically correct thing to say about dwarfs, short people who don't grow fully to their potential. So he made a number of movies using little people as uh, the main characters or as the only characters in his films. And another German filmmaker, apart from Werner Herzog, there's another one who was inspired by the Romanticist movement and the paintings of Jericho. And his name is uh, Fassbinder. Okay. Um, Fassbinder. I think he's Mikhail Fassbinder. I'm not very sure if that is his first name. I think it is Mikhail. Michael is pronounced Mikhail in uh, German. So Fassbinder made a movie called The Marriage of Maria Braun. Okay, and in this movie, it is all about somebody who's not very good looking. Okay, and the whole film is set in with people who are far, far from good looking. Otherwise, you go and see any movie in any language, it is full of good looking people. If I say I want to become um, a hero, people will laugh at me. Look at you. How can you be a hero? Okay, even if I was 25 years old and if I was like this, at 25, I wasn't like this. I was one fourth of the size of this. Okay, but uh, they'd say, why will we take you? We won't. So that is all about beautiful things. So Fassbinder wanted to show that even ordinary people, not made up for films, you can make films about them and you can tell their stories. Okay, so Fassbinder was an amazing filmmaker, and I'm not sure about the first name. I'll confirm it later. Okay, just let me check and confirm it. Fassbinder is the second name that I do know. Okay, these people portrayed romanticism as a realism. They thought that the rational civilization was something that was, you know, unnecessarily glorifying man. It was an unreal glorifying of man. And you see the same things being picked up by Joseph Mallard, William Turner. Turner, we shall simply call him that. Turner specialized in paintings of rains, uh, steam, okay? Because please remember that the Industrial Revolution first used water and then it started using fire and steam. Okay, so he was against the Industrial Revolution and how it was spoiling the landscapes. So he used steam as a theme to show how steam was obliterating the beauty of a natural landscape. Till the Romanticist period, people didn't paint landscapes. Okay, they only painted people, houses, lakes, birds, all these kind of things were painted. Okay, and in every painting there were people and very good looking people. None of them were bad looking. And if you look at Henri Rousseau, not Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Henri Rousseau, the other painter, he painted monkeys. He painted monkeys, apes, and his idea was to show to people that this is what we have descended from. So his paintings are childlike, as if, some child who can't draw. He deliberately painted like that. It's not because he couldn't draw or paint. He deliberately painted like that. Henri Rousseau, Henri. Okay, it's Henry in English, Henri in French. Then to come back to Turner, Turner also talked about this thing of fishermen being at sea. Not talked, he painted. Fishermen being at sea and the sea being very rough. The sea is very, very rough. I don't know how many of you have actually sat and watched the sea. When I had when I saw all these paintings, I was a very young fellow. Okay, so not young as in a small boy. I was really young, about your age now, maybe slightly less. And I was impressed by this whole thing. And I was in the NCC, so we were taken to an NCC camp uh, in Vishakhapatnam, since I was in the naval wing of the NCC. And I used to sit in the evenings when we had nothing to do. We were in a what is called a battery. Okay, a battery is where you have cannons and all that you fire into the sea in case the enemy comes. So we were in the barracks, but I used to come out of the barracks and I used to sit near the fence and watch the sea. It is an amazing thing if you just watch the sea. Okay, the way it heaves, the way the water goes up and down. And then, as a part of what is called a seamanship training, we were taken in a Petia class warship. I'm giving you the name of the warship as Petia class because the deck of the Petia class is very, very low. If you're in sea, if you stand on the deck, the rear deck especially, you can put your hands in the sea. And we were taken some 20 nautical miles into the sea. And if you look at the sea from there, it is a very, very humbling experience. It is humbling because it's first and foremost, it looks unfathomable. Second, that huge expanse of water, which is, going like this. If you look at that way in which the water actually heaves, and being in a small ship, that ship rolls. It is an amazing experience, scary, but at the same time, awe-inspiring. Awe-inspiring. Some of my fellow cadets couldn't take that. They ran into the ship, inside. But I don't know. I was fascinated with the whole thing and I stood there. And this particular painting of Turner, where fishermen at sea, that was something that came into my mind. It basically came into my mind. And I was thinking, and if you go near Vizag, you'll see people on small little rafts. They go miles into the sea for fishing. And I marveled at them because I could see them there. Here I am in a proper ship. It may be small, but it's a proper ship. And I'm completely awestruck here. And these are people who are fishing by just sitting with one leg on each side of a raft. So, those are the kind of things that people like Turner wanted to show to the world. Rembrandt painted a winter landscape, which was Rembrandt is written Rembrandt, Rembrandt. Winter landscape, he painted it as a miniature, just as much. It's, I don't know, if you want to see how bleak winters are in areas where it snows, see a film called Fargo, Fargo, Fargo. Okay, if you see this film, you'll see everything is bleak. I went to Finland because I have a friend there. He invited me to his university, and I was there in Finland. You know, you don't see people like we see here. You don't see somebody for 20 seconds, you'll be surprised. There, we were seeing people once in 4 days or 5 days. Once in 4 days or 5 days. That is how it is. And it's very, very bleak. It's extremely bleak. So, those are the kind of things that he painted. Then he painted what he called the Dido building in Carthage. Carthage is near Rome. It signified the power of the Roman Empire. One of the buildings there is the Dido building, which was in Carthage, again, the seat of power. And this he paints as if it's all falling apart, as if it is looking terrible. It's black with soot and things like that. And then he also painted a thing called modern Rome, where all the Roman architecture in its grand splendor is there, but you don't get to see it fully. Why? Because there is smoke, black smoke. And he painted landscapes. So you'll see this verdant or green landscapes. Till then, nobody painted landscapes, not even Jericho. Maybe you should basically give Turner the credit of starting painting of landscapes where there are no characters, either human or animal. Okay, the only things that are there are trees, grass, and things like that. And then suddenly, somewhere in that painting, you'll find blackness, which is smoke coming out of chimneys. Basically, smoke coming out of chimneys and spoiling the beauty of the landscape. There were no other characters there, no human beings, no animals. So, lot of other painters after Turner also started painting landscapes, but without the pollution, to tell people, look, this is what you're losing. You don't find this anymore. At one time, we had public gardens. I remember public gardens was gardens. Now it is roads with small, small pieces of, grass here and there, right? So you can't see greenery anywhere now. You can't see greenery anywhere except at KBR Park. So that is the thing that these people were trying to prove. What we are missing in the name of the progress of mankind. And that's why they called it realism. They called it realism because they said this is the reality. And you are actually powerless. You're not somebody who's very powerful. You're not somebody who's capable of, you know, controlling nature and no, nothing like that. So this was reflected best in paintings. Now, I spoke to you about Wordsworth. I spoke to you about Turner, so I'm not going to talk to you about John Constable. He also painted, uh, he was a contemporary of Turner, and he also painted landscapes. So uh, let's move on. I thought I should emphasize a bit on these things so that you really understand what is it that the romanticists were trying to prove. Why is it pessimistic? It's not ordinary pessimism, okay? It is a philosophical kind of pessimism, which is trying to tell you you've got it all wrong. You can't control things. When you control things, it looks like you can control things. But when they slip out of your control, you're completely helpless. That is what they wanted to prove. And that's why they called themselves romanticists and realists. They said our work is realism. I talked to you about the Baroque and Rococo style of architecture. I told you the Baroque is something which is always beautiful, bright. Rococo is Gothic, and I told you it comes from the German tribes who are called the Gothic tribes. And it is something which is very dark. Okay, the French Enlightenment was pessimistic, and this found its way into art. But due to the philosoph tradition, which continued to cling on to the rational way of thinking, rationalism did not go into the philosophy of the French tradition. I mean, not rationalism, sorry, romanticism did not go into the philosophy of the French tradition. Rousseau is a bit of a romanticist, but is not a complete romanticist. And I had told you, if you look at Auguste Comte, he believed in science. He believed in science conquering nature. And we, as social science students, know about Auguste Comte because Auguste Comte was talking about natural sciences, which had completely demystified nature, demystified the universe, but social sciences hadn't become sciences. So he said the existence of history and philosophy, the existence of history and philosophy in the study of human society is a hindrance in the way of the emergence of social sciences. Because science needs, he made a few things that define a science. What are the things that define a science? The first thing is that it should be observable, a phenomenon. Okay, that is the first thing. It should lend itself to observation or it should be observable. The second thing is that it should lend itself to verification or the establishment of truth of something, then it should be predictable. Predictable in the sense that you should, because if your knowledge is certain, you'll say, tomorrow the sun will rise at so and so time. That is a prediction, not astrological predictions. Okay, that kind of predictions. So it should also have that predictability, right? So he said these are the things that should be there in a science. And this, he said, will lead to facts. Facts are those which cannot be refuted. If I put a fire in front of you and tell you this is a fire, can you say this is not a fire? You can't. So he said it should be a fact. It should culminate in being a fact. And only then will it be a science. If it has values, which are morals, not economic values of the Adam Smith kind of thing, that what is the value of 1 kg of cashew nuts? That is a different kind of value. Value here as ethical, moral principles. That's why I said philosophy shouldn't be there, because it tries to bring in ethical and moral principles into the study of society. He didn't want history, because history doesn't lend itself to verification. Today, everybody is fighting about history. I got one forward. Okay. Rashtrakuta Empire lasted 900 years. Chola Empire lasted 700 years. Then some Chera Empire lasted so many years. So you have all these. And then you have this thing. Why don't we study these? Why do we study only the Mughal Empire, which lasted 300 years? Okay. So there can be disagreements about what to study and what not to study in history. All right. This is, of course, communally motivated argument. But even otherwise, if you take British colonialism, if you look at the entries that have been made by district collectors, civil servants, you will find that they said that they were bringing civilization to barbaric people in India. Okay. And if you read Indian historians, if you read a school of thought that is represented by somebody like R.C. Majumdar, then R.C. Majumdar will say India had a great civilization when the Europeans were hanging on trees. If you read a Marxist historian like Bipin Chandra will tell you that colonialism plundered and looted India and made it poor. It didn't develop it. Even though both Majumdar and uh, uh, Bipin Chandra are saying that colonialism was bad, they're giving different reasons for it. Bipin Chandra doesn't celebrate the past. Bipin Chandra doesn't look at ancient India at all. He looks at only an interpretation of this India, which is modern in the sense that it is colonial. He is only concerned with that. Romila Thapar is concerned with ancient past. But she says Aryans came in bands and settled here, whereas BJP historians will tell you that Aryans actually were born and they came up in India. So it's all disputations. So Auguste Comte said, with all these disputations, where is this whole thing called certainty of knowledge? Because fact is certainty. So it is it is observability, verifiability, predictability, and certainty, right? Where are they in social sciences? They are missing because of philosophy and history. So this Frenchman says, sorry, we don't want all this. So you see, France has never been an easy country to understand. It shows lots of things. It's like saying it shows this also, it shows that also. And Rousseau, as a philosopher, is also like that. Rousseau is not somebody who will give you a focused philosophy which says just this. He'll give you choices. Anyway, we are ending. I'm sorry about the delay today. Tomorrow we'll start off with Rousseau and we'll try and finish as much as we can. Okay.